Well, there's certain things that technology cannot either take from us or does not have, right? We have a soul.
If the machine is going to be able to replicate everything, can it replicate consciousness?
We are going to find that we have multiple systems that have digital twins of us that will also have a holographic image of us.
What is to be human? How are we going to differentiate when it's not human?
AI and technology will be able to, we'll say, fake empathy, fake creativity, fake connection.
What if I told you that thinking like a human is about to be your biggest superpower? Welcome to the Tech Foresight podcast that is all about the future of industries and the future of the people that are shaping them. And I am your host. I am Ja-Naé Duane, a Mexican entrepreneur that is working in the areas of telecom, digital inclusion, and blockchain. Today is an episode that I know that it's going to be a very big one because it's not just about AI or strategy or systems. It's about you. It's about the part that leadership and machines cannot replicate, at least cannot replicate yet. And I am joined by the brilliant Dr. Ja-Naé Duane. She's a futurist, behavioral scientist. She is the co-author of Supershifts and a mind-bending guide that for the next 200 years, she has think about what is going to be the human transformation. So this episode will push you to ask, what do I need to relearn to lead in this new era? What will we still going to be make and what make me valuable in a world of intelligent machines? And I would like you to think about what is going to be the headline of your future. So grab a pen because we're going to think in ink or open that notes app. And because this episode is going to be full of insights and I wouldn't want you to really forget what we're going to talk. So welcome, Ja-Naé. Thank you for being with us in this Tech Foresight podcast.
Oh, Diana, thank you for having me. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Only said 40% of the work hours could be automated by 2030. At least this is what McKinsey tell us. And we think of this 2030 is 5 years from now. That's tomorrow in starting years. And I know that you speak in the 200 years from now, but bear with me for 1 second. Now let's go a little by little. And let's just start thinking today that we're already 5 years from now. It's like 2030. What are those shifts that you are already seeing? What's dying and what is emerging as the new normal by this 2030, Ja-Naé?
Yeah, what I find is right now we have some really exciting changes that are happening, particularly within the organization. One thing that I think is really fascinating is how organizations are starting to explore AI as a member of their team within different business functions, as well as on the executive level. And the trend that I'm starting to see, which I really love, is a reflection on how can we be thoughtful about bringing AI into our organization. How can we be thoughtful about the guardrails in which we put AI through or between rather? And really, how do we identify where we need more of human in the loop versus we can automate some of the tasks that we have? And what we're going to see over the next several years, yes, we are going to see jobs shift. Absolutely. We're going to see jobs go away. Absolutely. But that's not something that's bad, right?
Okay.
Like, this is just an evolution of technology. Maybe think about, for example, we used to need folks to power essentially our elevators. We needed little boys to go up and light the lampposts on our streets. This is just evolution of where we are now. And there's so many jobs that we don't necessarily know we'll need yet, but will naturally evolve within the organization. So that is one big major piece that I'm seeing and I am loving because it allows for folks to really tap into the creativity to go, okay, so I'm within this organization. Where else can I not only provide value, but unlock value within the organization instead of focusing my time on these tasks that are so draining where, do you really want to do another PowerPoint deck?
Yeah,
No.
no,
Who really wants to do that?
no, I don't.
Exactly. Do you really want to write another report to synthesize your findings? Yes, you probably want your hands in it, but you don't want to write that if you've done all the work and all the research that goes into it. So it's really about how do we allow ourselves to be freed up to do what we do well, which is be human and identify new possibilities not only for the organizations in which we work in and we work for and we run, but for ourselves and what that means in our day to day. So to me, I'm seeing these different, and I don't want to call them trends, but I'm seeing these evolutions starting to occur, and it's a really beautiful time to really explore how technology is changing our lives.
I love this because it gives me really this opportunity to think with you about uh, the future. And we just spoke about 2030, but if we try a little bit, push a little bit further to 2040, where neural interfaces could allow us to think with machines, but maybe they won't be able to make these moral decisions, or I don't know if they were going to be able to dream, right? So what do you think that is still uniquely human by 2040? And what does AI continue to struggle with that even it becomes probably they might be smarter than us in some ways, but they won't be able to tackle this. What do you think by 2030, 2040 will be that make us that uniquely human?
Well, there's certain things that technology cannot either take from us or does not have, right? We have a soul, we have connection to other human beings where, AI, machine learning, those technologies are not going to have that. They might have some type of representation that is similar, if you will, and may feel like they can think, and I say feel intentionally. But we are already cyborgs, right? Like I have my cell phone here, my iPhone here. We're already connected and utilize technology on our day to day. So as we're thinking about what the next, and I'll say even what the next 10 to 15 years look like, we're really going to see more of that blend, if you will, or that integration between humans and technologies in different ways. So you mentioned Neuralink and a neural
Mhm.
network. We have experimentations with wearable devices where you can mouth your what you want to say to maybe what I want to say to you, and we're walking down the street together and no one else can hear us, but because we both have the wearable tech, we're able to connect with one another. Exactly. And so also as we think about rehabilitation and folks who might be amputees, like we are now incorporating AI into our prosthetics so that there is a connection and people can grip with their prosthetic. They can feel with that prosthetic now. And we're just going to see more and more of that augmentation. So knowing that that augmentation is happening, we are going to see a shift in how we as humans start to explore what intelligence looks like, what
Mm.
creativity looks like, what it means to have connection with another human being, and
Mm.
really going to, I'll say, go, in my mind, go through almost an existential crisis first, but come out on the other end in a beautiful way when thinking about identity and what it means for us as individuals to be human. So all of these things I'm seeing bits and pieces of now that I know is going to be a groundswell later.
I just love talking about the future with you because you take me to all these places. I'm like, yes, I want to be there. And listen, a strategic foresight is not longer just a human game. You know, the algorithms now they're mapping trends faster than human analysts.
Right.
But I guess that there's a tension, and the tension is, can a machine really understand the context and the power of us, the humans, and our complexities? If we fast forward 25 years and we're in 2050, who's going to be doing your job, Ja-Naé? Who's going to do, or who's going to be the strategist, the system thinker, or foresight leader? How do they look like this in 2050?
What we are seeing and what I've been working with leaders on has been, what is AI driven foresight? Where are the opportunities to incorporate AI? So yes, so we know that we can scan for both strong and weak signals out in the horizon, be able to then synthesize many of those with different types of different types of machine learning so that we can identify patterns. That's great. That is a really great use of technology when you're thinking about the future of your organization. From there, you as a leader, as an executive, can start to really adaptively scenario plan. So how can you utilize even Gen AI to come up with varying different scenarios based on the data that you have? And then with your team, start to identify those threads that you're seeing within each of these scenarios, because it's those threads that no matter if it's a bleak future or one that seems really optimistic, and maybe you're heading into a complete new area that's blue ocean, and you have a new set of products and services, you're able to identify where those targets are across all of those scenarios. And that's very much human in the loop right now. And
Right.
what you can do is you can start to scenario plan from there and identify artifacts of the future, which you can utilize AI for. So that's where we are now. Now, different points along the journey of strategic foresight where you have more AI, more technology in the loop than others, but it's very much a partner. What we're
So,
going
but today you are doing this job with us. I mean, we CEOs, we can get a Ja-Naé, helping us unpack this type of things. But if we think about 25 years from now, for those that are thinking in the, I want to do what Ja-Naé is doing today. I want to do it in the future. Is something like that in the future happening, or is it only machines? Who's going to be doing this job for us?
I still think that it's going to be a blend, but I think it's going to be a different blend. So let me explain. So much of our data, let's imagine that we're just talking about Gen AI and the amount of data that we're providing. We can use OpenAI as an example, and ChatGPT. There's already a behavioral digital twin of you, of me, that has been collected, that is being collected through OpenAI. Now, what we are going to
Sorry, this is scary. It's true. It's very scary, but true. Okay.
It is scary. And this is why really knowing and understanding not only what tools you're using, who owns those tools, how are they utilizing that data, because these are all data points in which you are providing them. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter whether or not it's enterprise or it's the subscription model. You are still deciding to give your data, and usually it's more data than we acknowledge.
Totally, totally.
To a company. And so taking that ownership and that responsibility now to go, all right, I know that I'm doing this. Great. So how does that translate into in organization, we are going to find that we have multiple, I'll call them systems,
Mm.
multiple systems that have digital twins of us that will also have a holographic image of us. We'll have different elements of how we think, the decisions that we want to make, the decisions that we like to make, how we weight those decisions. And those data points that will create your behavioral digital twin will help to inform the AI that will probably be doing so much of, we'll call it the routine day to day. So you might have a behavioral digital twin of a Ja-Naé working with your organization, and so in many ways it is a piece of me, but it's not me in the flesh that's helping that organization to make decisions. And so it's really interesting when you think about how you can monetize that, also where you decide and how you decide to spend your time, who you decide to help, as far as maybe helping organizations or helping multinational organizations or governments, or collectives. And so it really starts to change our perception of ownership and agency and what that means to the future.
So, I was reading the other day that it's the typical thing that many of the magazines probably can tell you about the future, that the skills of the future are creativity, adaptability, reasoning, but I would like you to tell me, Janai, what are these future skills that machine won't be able to fake? And we need those skills to start developing them now. Which ones are those?
I will say that I don't think there's any of those that machines will not be able to fake. It
Mm.
makes me question, and I love having this conversation with my students as well as with really smart people like yourself. What does it mean to truly be human? What does it mean to truly have connection? And I don't know if we as humanity have a great answer to that. However, I think that we have a great opportunity to redefine what that can be for us as we move into this complete new age of intelligence. Because if we're saying that connecting with someone is having a conversation the way that we are now, or maybe someone who's elderly who's having a conversation with their Alexa because they have no one else to talk to. If
Mm.
that's what we're saying connection is, then I would push back on us to go, we're not truly connecting with one another. I go back to the moments where I see friends or loved ones, and there's a bit of the biomimicry that occurs where we're just naturally moving in sync, or we're able to finish each other's sentences, where there's almost this collective consciousness and collective thought that occurs and collective feeling. So I want to move beyond the brain and just think of this a little more holistically. To me, we haven't really explored that. We haven't explored that enough scientifically. We haven't explored that enough collectively as a race, and as humans. And this is a lovely time to start to explore that, because AI and technology will be able to, we'll say, fake empathy, fake
Mm.
creativity, fake connection. Or, and I also don't like the word fake per se, but they will be able to simulate these things.
Okay.
And
And how do you think we're going to be able to differentiate? I mean, I love this question that you put, like, what is to be human? And how are we going to differentiate when it's not human?
right, but I think that's part of the question now is we really don't have a good answer to this of how we can differentiate or how we will be able to differentiate between the connections with, say, a technology versus a human. But I think that we're getting to a point where we're going to start to explore that question more to get to an answer that is deeper or more thoughtful. But I'll say we collectively haven't gotten there yet. And, I will admit for myself, part of what I explore, Diana, and really think about for myself is think about this situation here, right? You and I are in a conversation, we're recording a podcast, we're both on Zoom, and we both have the perception that we're here, we're engaged, we're looking at the same things. If I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. There is a joint attention, yeah, exactly. But there's a joint attention to do this as something that we have put our time and our energy on. However, how many times are you in a conversation, and you don't have to answer this, but how many times do we find ourselves in a situation where we think we're having the same conversation, or we think that we as two people have come to the same outcome through that conversation, and then we find out later that that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yeah, how many times do we think that what someone, a human being that is talking to us, is telling us a truthful story, and it happens that it wasn't true. So if it's already difficult for us human to understand when somebody's telling us the truth, how do we know that that other interface speaking to us is truly human? So it's been very hard. It's
Well,
already hard.
it is really hard, but I also think this is where we're my hypothesis is that we're going to see an evolution of our senses to be more heightened and maybe even identify additional senses that we have that we might not be aware of to be able to start to discern this information, right? Because that's all these that's all this is. These are just signals. This is just information. However, as we evolve as humans, we are going to need to heighten our senses, and we will probably, and maybe it is what we know or call intuition right now,
Right.
but we are going to have to start to explore, and it'll just happen naturally. It's part of our evolution, but we will have to start to explore how we really decipher and discern through information.
I remembered, and for the audience, context for the audience, Jenna and I, we met. She was my professor. She was my faculty director at Singularity University in a beautiful program that I did. I don't know, like for 6 months. I don't know how long it was. It was super long. And there was this class where Divya asked us what was consciousness, and could we offload consciousness into a computer? And I remember this debate, right? And someone and said, I don't remember, it was you or who said, like, well, consciousness might be the only thing that might separate us from the machine. And so thinking, towards what you're explaining to me right now is, if the machine is going to be able to replicate everything, can it replicate consciousness? What do you think about it?
What I do think right now is that consciousness will be replicated, but I think that we will also identify as humans that we have a collective consciousness that we just haven't been able to tap into yet or know how to tap into yet. And though I don't want to argue that this will be a differentiator between us and say machines, because machines very much will have a collective consciousness as well, a network of a network of nodes and decision-making points and being able to intuitively work in balance with one another. But I do think that that's where we are heading as we unlock our potential.
Mm.
But I don't think that that's going to make us uniquely human. Um, I do question I do question the role of frequency and um and the role of vibration in
Hmm.
what it means to be human and sensing those things, right? There's a lot of early research, and early, I mean like 1940s, 1950s, around our own information fields as humans, the amount of information that we take in, what gets filtered, how it gets filtered. Um, but what I'm noticing, and this actually comes from my work as an opera singer and an artist, that when you align, and I'll just take singing as an example, when you align a note in the most perfect way in a chord, you can start to hear the overtones that naturally get produced. So
Mm.
if that's the case, and again, just a simple example, but if that's the case, those are layers of information that exist that because something got unlocked, we are now able to hear them. So where are the other layers that exist that we just need to unlock? And so that's a big thing that I'm thinking about right now that I think can also help, at least for me, answer the question, what does it mean to be uniquely human? Because I don't think that machines or AI will be able to discern those in the way that humans will be able to.
In the Super Shift book, you tell us that we are entering in this 200-year transformation that you call the age of intelligence,
Mhm.
being critical, which is when actually from 2030 to 2040 to 2050, what's going to happen in 2220? How does this trajectory is going to look like? And what does even intelligence mean? What is going to be? How do if we're having this struggle on what is being to be human today, how is going to be human in 200 years from now?
Yeah. So I would say that one of the reasons why we struggle now, Diana, is because we view everything as a zero-sum game
Hmm.
instead of what I argue as a positive sum game. How do we start to live in symbiosis with machines and AI, just the way that you see both natural and artificial um, organisms living within natural environments and nature, right? Like there's very much a need and a want to stop assuming that we are the end all be all, and a need and a want to really explore what it means to coexist and know that it's more than just existing, it's really thriving with either organisms or we'll call them artificial organisms that very much don't look like us, don't act like us, or maybe they act somewhat like us, but there's a codependency that exists between all of those elements. I would really love for us to start to head there now. But in order for us to do that, we really need to take a look at what we value, how we are coming to society, how we are building the future of humanity, what we deem as important. Like, do we really need to have, to I'll just say I'm looking at the trees outside my house. Like, do I really need to cut down this acre of trees in order to build something else? Or can I build something that maybe coexists within these trees that allows for a bit of that biodiversity within the habitat that exists here? So it's reimagining our coexistence without assuming that we really are the conquerors of the future. Because if we are taking that mentality,
Mm.
we are heading to devastation in my mind.
Ay, so it's,
I got really dark.
ah, okay. So, well, okay, let's calm down. Let's bring this in a positive note then. And what I would love us to think is like, what are you doing today to make it real? So that's the push that I want to ask you.
Yeah, that's a lovely push. Thank you for that. So my headline would be consciousness that powers planets. And
I'm taking notes.
okay. What I really am excited to explore is, how do we take pieces of our consciousness and I don't want to say jack them up into the matrix, but what are different ways in which our consciousness can live on beyond, this organic form? And are we able to split our consciousness or have it be in multiple places at the same time? So that's something that I'm really interested in exploring. The other piece of this is, I mentioned planets, is we are obviously moving towards being an interplanetary species. And
Mm.
so, there's been a lot of, I'll say, press and conversations around Mars, but there's also folks that are working on what it might be like to um, live within the atmosphere of Venus. And so, yeah, it's
I like what.
lots of fun things to explore. And so one of the things that I'm working on is a space venture studio called Gaia, where we're starting to explore some of these technologies and commercializations that can occur here on Earth that then have application in space. Also working with folks on identifying what is their space strategy, because again, we are shifting as we're thinking about what the future of work looks like. That also, in the future of business, that also means that there's application within space that companies really need to start to explore. And the consciousness piece that I'm exploring now is very much along the lines of that joint attention that you and I spoke about a few minutes ago. But looking at that within virtual reality, if we're doing some of this work with doctors and patient experience, if you have a doctor that is an avatar and a patient that's an avatar and they're having a conversation, again, are they still focused in and are they getting the same things out of that conversation? And so exploring it there so that we can then start to translate even what perception and consciousness might mean elsewhere in other environments is those are some small ways in which I'm exploring those right now.
Very, very, very cool. That's super inspiring. So, all right. Now we're stepping one of my absolute favorite parts of this Tech Foresight podcast, which is the four dreams and the four trends. And it's because I really believe that leaders who shape the future are not just following the headlines, they're actually reading the signals and making sure that that image that is coming next, they are really reading it. So the way that it works is this segment, Ja-Naé, is that I'm going to ask you 4 trends, real shifts, as you call them, that you are seeing right now that are already bending the trajectory of your industry, your field of study, and ideally, well, the world. And what I believe is that these are kind of like the clues. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out, and I would like you to give us 4 dreams. And dreams are bold, maybe wild. And I know you're don't need to push you too hard on it because you're game on this. So let's gonna start with this. Let's go to foresight the imagination. You ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome.
All right. So 4 trends. So I would say number one, as I'm looking at some of the cultural shifts that are occurring globally, what's really interesting is that we have folks that are really considering themselves not not having a specific national allegiance, but feeling that they are part of a global community. And it doesn't matter and they might live and work in different areas throughout the year. I would argue that, I would imagine you are one of them, just knowing so many of your travels and how you and your husband explore. But there's this whole movement for folks to really consider what it means to be essentially a member of Earth, a member of this society. What's fascinating about that is there's always the counter, right? Like you see a trend, but then you also see the counter trend. And we're seeing this here in the United States where there is very much a counter trend of more nationalism. How are we closing up our borders? And so it's for me as a behavioralist to see both of those happening at the same time is really fascinating. So that's number one. Number two is really, I want to get into identity. And I started to see this shift, particularly as more young folks were spending, more time in VR or in Fortnite, being able to buy skins and
Mm-hmm.
representing themselves in different ways. And seeing a bit of that, seeing gender fluidity within daily life and out here in the world. What I'm starting to see and what I'm just going to identify as something we're going to see more and more is that people will show pieces of themselves depending on the environment that they're in, right? Like you might act one way at your job, but you might act a different way with your friends. What we're going to see a, a bigger shift towards, particularly within digital environments, are the ways in which people start to express those elements of their identity within these silos or within these pockets. So you might find that I'll just say maybe you're within Roblox or you're within Fortnite and you decide to have a skin where you have the head of a giraffe with a purple mohawk. And for some reason, that's how you want to represent yourself. And maybe you're going to a concert, right? But that's how you want to represent yourself within that environment. And so we're going to see people explore different pieces of themselves that maybe they even would suppress in their, out here. And I don't want to call it the real world, but the non-digital world.
The tangible, yeah.
But we would also argue, is it tangible? So that's another philosophical question. But people are starting to explore that now and are going to continue to explore that. So that is a big shift. Another shift that we have seen, I mean, I saw this before COVID. I saw this happen during COVID, but now that we're having this counter of you need to come back to work. We no longer want you on Zoom, come back in. We are starting to see people really embrace what it means to have a portfolio career, particularly
Mm.
with AI coming on into organizations. If you don't have to work for the same company for 40 years, and I don't recommend that anyway. I think that that's unhealthy in many regards. This is an opportunity to explore if you had your druthers and your chance to work for multiple companies, what are your set of values? How do you explore where you contribute and how you contribute? And so we're starting to see that trend now where people are working multiple full-time jobs. We've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So like during COVID, we're still seeing that now, but since people are being sort of forced back into the office, we're now seeing this push to go, no, but I can contribute in this way. And I know that I provide unique value to the organization in this way. So that portfolio career is really something we're going to see shift more and more. And then I would say the last one that I really love is, and this actually has to do with our use of technology, because people have been cognitively bombarded, not only
Mm-hmm.
from social media, but also just being on Zoom for hours and hours on end.
Yeah.
People are starting to disconnect and move to more analog. And so what I'm seeing pop up, which I haven't seen pop up since the early days of social media, are these wants and needs for experiences that are in person, sometimes underground, meaning like, that others might not know about it. And so it's really just, for a small group of folks who are like-minded around a specific topic, but it's a want and a need to meet in person and really have that connection because people are feeling like they don't have that connection anymore. And so they're trying to get back to that.
I love this. I truly love this. So okay, let's going to do this. Move forward to the future now again, and let's dream. But what will be your dream? Let's start with society. What would you like us to be? Let's say 2050.
Oh, I mean, I would love a society where we have a positive sum outlook on all things, where we're not assuming that it's you against me, us against them, that we can all coexist and co-live and co-thrive, where we have a different form of economics that that doesn't make us compete against one another to the detriment of someone else, but in a way in which all of our basic needs are taken care of. So that to me, and I'd also include in really knowing and understanding the role that nature plays as a stakeholder in the future
Mhm.
of humanity. Like that's really what I hope and dream for humanity and society, particularly as we have this planet, we're starting to move to other planets. How do we really embrace this and be responsible about and thoughtful about how we start to become interplanetary?
Let's go about your dream on technology.
Okay. My dream on technology is that technology will realize the potential that humans have and that we can coexist with one another. Because we already know from an intelligence perspective, we are going to be surpassed. Not today, not tomorrow, but we're definitely heading into an era of coexistence. And so
Mhm.
my hope and dream is that we can coexist with the technology in which we embrace today. So,
And what about your fourth dream on your third dream, actually, on the future of work?
The future of work for me is about people working on things that they're really excited about, that they're interested about, where they can explore their imagination. The future of work for me isn't about stakeholder and shareholder value, but it's really about the creation of things that only
Hmm.
exist in our imagination.
I like that future of work. And your final dream, it's about what we humans can become. What do you think in 2050 will be to be a
What,
human?
yeah, what it means to be a human in 2050. I think that we will be I think that we will be augmented by AI even more so than we are now. I think that we will identify that collective intelligence that you and I have talked about, and also identify that biomimicry that we naturally have with one another, that other animals have with one another, so that we are, I don't want to say more productive, but we are creating a shared value in all of the experiences that we create. And so it's almost like this natural dance that we have with one another where you don't even need to second guess it. And it doesn't matter if it's someone you've known your entire life or if it's a complete stranger, that we're just naturally in harmony with one another. That is my
I
dream.
like I like this. And it's a shared dream. What I would love us to kind of understand, if we've been talking a lot about the future, but if I can get you back in the past,
Okay.
and if you can travel back when you were 18-year-old, what would you tell to that beautiful 18-year-old Ja-Naé?
Oh. Well, when I was 18, I was financially supporting my siblings. My mom was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I wasn't sure if I was going to go to college. I wasn't sure how I was going to afford college. And I was very much a diamond in the rough. I had a lot of sharp edges at that time. And what I would say to my 18-year-old self, as I come up on my 48th birthday next week, is I would
Mm.
say that every decision you're going to make might not be the right decision or feel like the right decision, but it's going to lead you on an amazing path of adventure and exploration. And even when things seem tough, even when things seem bleak, even if you don't know how you're going to put food in your mouth or pay your rent, that you just surrender to the moment and surrender to the process and know that things will always work out because you always find ways to make it work. And just trust in yourself that you will always find a way to thrive.
Right, that's such a beautiful thing. Is there anything that you wish somebody told you, an advice that you wish you would have when you were maybe that age?
Wow, that's such a good question. I struggle with this question. I don't know about you, but I struggle with this question because I worry that if I was given different information, that I wouldn't be who I am today. And I'm very grateful for who I am today. The advice that I do wish that was given to me was to let go and
Mm.
just embrace every challenge, but in a way that makes you know that you are going to come out on the other end stronger, I'll even argue better, but the learnings are just so tremendous that that it's within those learnings. I mean, that is really the journey of life, and enjoying that journey. That's probably the biggest piece here, is learning how to enjoy the journey, which is something I think I'm still learning. I know some would argue I'm still learning, but that's what I'm striving for, Diana.
And okay, so let me then ask you something along the lines, but differently.
Okay.
What is the best advice that you have received?
Oh, the best advice actually came from a mentor of mine who I considered him like my father, Dr. Leonard Brown. He's now passed, but the best advice that he gave me was just trust who you are. You have everything that you need in life. You have everything that you need to succeed. Just trust that every situation you find yourself in, there is something in that you're supposed to take with you to that next step. And so that to me, he's always in the back of my head, always saying that to me. So,
I like this. I like this. Well, before we close, I want to lock in three quick takeaways that I'm taking from this amazing conversation. One is that AI may automate knowledge, but I don't think it's going to automate wisdom. That's probably the edge that we have as a human leader, as you put it on. Then the future belongs more to those that are working on them. And I love this, the learning to think type of thing that you're telling us. It's how do we learn and relearn and unlearn things that we know to help us relearn how to think in these 5, 10, 25, or even the 200 years. And my third is that foresight is not necessarily a prediction, it's preparation. And I see it with you. I guess that it starts with asking better questions, with what do we think about or what do we want, like in this framing a scenario about the future or your future headline type of thing. What do we want not only for the world, but also for ourselves? So those are my three takeaways. Am I forgetting something that you believe that is important, we should say?
no, I think that those are some really impactful takeaways, and I those resonate with me really well. And I really love the emphasis on wisdom, which is uniquely human. I would agree with that and argue pretty strongly for that, as well as strategic foresight is absolutely about preparedness, hands down. And many organizations think it's this nice to have when really we know a black swan event is coming, multiple black swan events are coming. It's all about preparing not only your organization, but yourself. We are very comfortable. How do we allow for some of those stressors to come into our life, but in an isolated way so that we can really explore where our edge is and then how we can push our edge even farther out?
I love this. I love this. So, Janae, to close, my dear, please, 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 please tell me what is that last message for the generation that is building the future now that you want to share with them?
Oh, what I would say to the generation who is building the future,
Yeah,
trusting yourself. Yeah, trusting
right.
yourself, trust in your values, trust
Mhm.
that you have more answers than you know, even if you're unsure of what the question is.
Thank you. Thank you, Janae. Thank you for just not sharing this brilliance of you that help us challenging all of what we think, that is where you make us think bigger, longer, deeper. You've given us this lens into the future that most people, they don't even dare to imagine, and the tools that you're giving us to make it happen. So thank you for coming to us, and thank you to showing up in the Tech Foresight podcast.
Oh, Diana, thank you for having me and thank you for such an amazing conversation. I wish everyone could have these conversations and you are a amazing, lovely, lovely host. So thank you for this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And to everyone listening today, if your brain is buzzing like mine, that's actually, believe, a very good sign. this episode was not only about what it was predicting, as we said, is what is coming. It was about preparing, because the age of intelligence is not in the next century, starting right now, right here. And in this era, your most powerful asset is not your titles, your tech, or the size of your checkbook, not even the company valuation. Your biggest asset is your ability to stay human. So make sure you're leading like one really good human. So do me a favor, follow Tech Foresight Podcast, either on LinkedIn, Spotify, or Apple or YouTube, wherever you want to listen it, following us up. Share it, send this episode to one person who is dreaming either building or reinventing their place in the future. And also send me your future headlines. Send it to us. Tag me, Diana Daniels, in LinkedIn, or tag Ja-Naé, Dr. Ja-Naé Duane, on LinkedIn, and share us your story. What are you writing, and what is your future scope of your work? I am Diana Daniels. Please stay bold, stay future ready, and most of all, stay very human. See you soon.